and everything, coast to coast, with your host, Buddy Sotelo Esquire, and Dr. Mike Lano. And we have two very, very special guests tonight. Mike, would you like to introduce them?
Definitely. The one and only wrestling legend globally, not just California or the West Coast, Donovan Morgan, who's been kind enough at our request to bring our late brother, and I had no clue until just now. Donovan said it's the anniversary of his passing, November 6th, when we're taping this. But Mike Lockwood, a.k.a. Leprechaun Aaron O'Grady, several other names, most notably in WWF, WWE, world famous as Crash Holly. That's his daughter, Patty, who at least I've not seen since speaking at his service in Pacifica. And we're just so honored. Thank you, Donovan, for bringing Patty with us here today.
Absolutely. No, she's all grown up now.
Yeah, I remember as a little kid, she had like long blonde hair, at least to her shoulders, at least from my memory, and probably the photos I might have had outside the place.
Yeah, she's what are you now? 26.
26.
Holy
wow! Amazing. Wow! As I was saying just before the show started, last time I saw you were about 3 years old, I think. It was over at the when Crash did an APW show with us over at San Leandro. And it was you were just adorable then, and I can't say enough about what a wonderful person your father was. But we'll talk more about that as the interview unfolds. How are you doing today?
I'm doing really good. It's been 18 years since he passed away today. It's crazy. It feels like yesterday. So no, I'm honored that Donovan wanted me to come on and talk with you guys about him.
He was so many wonderful stories, and I was there, Roland Alexander. Now that's not where he was first broken in, because I think, and you guys can correct me, I think it was Johnny Mae Young, female legend, a total legend going back to the 30s, and Woody Farmer, who first had, correct me if I'm wrong, Donovan, on that.
That's right. Yeah, I think it was Woody.
Broken in, but he came to APW to have Ricky Thompson, the head trainer, finesse him in that boot camp. I'm pretty sure, was he in the first or the second camp, Mike Lockwood?
It was probably the third or the fourth, because I came along in '96, so like April 19th of '96 was my start, and he was there almost 6 months after.
Because on Woody's TV, you remember, I forgot the actual name of it. It wasn't, it was on Comcast Cable. They helped out. They did all the production for free. But when he was with Woody, he had, I think, a different character. So he's very adept at playing anything thrown at him. I don't know if Roland gave him the leprechaun gimmick. Do you know any of that, Patty? Did you talk to your dad about? He's sort of like Mick Foley in that he had lots of characters. He did all of them well. This must have been difficult playing. Yeah,
he started out as the Leprechaun Aaron O'Grady, and then he went on to, I think it was it Mad Mikey and then Crash Holly?
Yeah, but what Mike's saying is at the beginning, did he ever talk to you? I
got the footage. I taped off TV and Woody's television. He was something else, but the Aaron O'Grady had a lot of transitions, and towards the last X period of time with APW, before he had that ECW tryout, and he was like in his rental car there at Philly, did his best, but I forgot if he got into it with somebody, and because he was a great talent and he had a good opinion of himself, as you should, but the timing is great in that he ended up not at smaller ECW but this global WWF, and you just with Molly Holly and the lead character there, Bob Holly, who he was all part of that triad, and then holding the 24/7 hardcore title, all of that stuff that
Let me ask Patty this, because I've never asked her this, but what was your first memory of your dad in wrestling?
The first memory, just going to like one of the shows with with Mario's daughter, his brother, and going to like one of the shows. Just how it was so noisy and loud. Just it was like kind of scary. All his coming on at first, so loud and all the commotion. And then me and his mom, Barbara, went to go see him when I was little, and it was so funny because we were walking out and she had like the can of soda with him, and the security guard was like, "You can't bring that soda in here, ma'am." And Crash was like, "That's my mom. Don't tell her anything." So it's so funny.
Yeah, there's a lot of good memories, Mike. I think with Patty, like I remember the night Patty was born, and I remember Mike coming to the APW garage and telling me that he had to leave because his daughter was being born, and right. I remember that vividly. And then I also remember him bringing her to the APW garage when she was about 3. She might have been 2 or 3, and he was throwing her up in the air by her feet, like doing this and catching her, and she was just giggling. And that was the first like 2 real like vivid memories I have of her. And then outside of that, what kind of memories did you have of him when he started to go to WWE? Because how old were you then?
Well, he passed away when I was 8. So he passed away when I was 8. So like the whole 8 years, like he would travel, like he was traveling back and forth. Like he was always calling me, traveling back and forth, and just always watching him on TV. I remember Barbara would always record it, like every Friday she would record it, and I'd go over to her house, watch him on TV, and that was really cool. Sometimes if it was locally, we'd go watch him like locally, but it was always pretty far away. So other than that, like, I don't know, it was pretty cool.
Very cool.
I remember the first time that I met your dad, which was at an APW light show. And a couple things I just want to say about your dad is that he was the most down-to-earth person that I ever met at that time. And I'd never met a big star from WWE before. He never big-timed anybody or treated other people like he was something special. And he gave us so many amazing stories about his experience in the WWE and what it was like to be on the big stage. And we all just drank it up because we didn't know anyone who had ever made it in the WWE before. It's now I look back on my career and I've known a lot of people who've been in there, but he was the first person I ever talked to who had been in the WWE, and he was not shy about sharing those experiences or letting people inside what he was going through. And he was an amazing guy that way.
That was it. For me, that was what I really got out of him, was that he was the type of guy that if he was having some sort of success, he was going to let everyone know, let everyone share in it, and let everyone come with them on the journey. And that's what I thought was awesome about him. But so I totally agree with you there. And it's amazing that here we are, we showed up to APW, and then all of a sudden it's like Matt Heisen's gone, and then Aaron O'Grady's gone, and Vic Grimes is gone, and that place really started to churn out some great people towards the end of the 90s there.
Doc, do you remember? I think it was an APW house show, and he came unannounced. To my knowledge, it was unannounced, or maybe last minute, but it was packed, so people had an idea he was going to be there. And I thought it was a Pacifica, but the thing of it was I posed him in the dressing room. Dave Meltzer was back there, but more importantly, Jim Barnett, who was this global guy. There would be no WWF National if it wasn't for him voting along. This is Jim Barnett voting along with the Briscoe brothers to, garner WTBS, but a whole other lot of aspects of Vince going national was all due to this Jim Barnett, who was one of the biggest promoters globally for decades and decades. He promoted in Indianapolis, Ohio, Australia. Do you remember that night? Were you at that card with Jim Barnett? You must have been on my list too.
For whatever reason, I thought it was San Leandro. That was San Leandro.
When Russ was talking about. Maybe that's what it was.
Yeah.
but that was huge because I posed the two of them together, and then I have like this group shot, and Meltzer photobombed it, and there were others because big WWF star on a house show for APW, which he didn't have to do, but he was such a brother to everybody there. And he didn't do a match, but he did like some kind of shtick in the ring on the mic and
run in, I think.
Yeah, and he did and he did some autographs, tons of autographs. Everybody wanted his autograph. He was that big of a star.
Of which he got in trouble for doing, by the way, which I remember that because he called me and he's like, dude, I got chewed out for that, So that was just a little testament to his character because, he didn't have to do that for, the small place where he came from and all the guys there, but he did and was willing to at least, ask for forgiveness rather than permission, which was kind of cool.
And we should talk and ask Patty. I don't know if she or her family were there to see before he was ever hardcore champion for WWF. He had a lot of those main events, And was he not part? He was part of that three-way outdoor, one of the biggest, earliest, insane things outside the dojo, APW, Gym Wars in Hayward off Winton Boulevard, outdoors. I forget if it was Rosano and Modest or Vic and Modest and Donovan, but who drove the car? Was it Modest who drove the car that?
No,
Vic, who drove the car that they duplicated the Eddie Gilbert, Jerry Lawler, Memphis angle, running Leprechaun Aaron O'Grady over. And another thing, and I'll shut up, is early on, Aaron O'Grady, throwing out the chocolate gold foil wrap and all of that stuff. And then kind of, using an Irish person's accent, so he's a great actor, great promo guy, but then kind of morphing it to where, he was Aaron O'Grady, but he was just like a normal dude, and he didn't have all the shtick. That was kind of towards the end, lessening of the shtick, preference for either preference for ECW or WWF. It was just, he really had a long, incredible career, usually always in main events, Patty, and you should be so proud of what he did. I mean, he was a gigantic star.
Yeah, he was probably, no, he was like the best dad you could ever ask for. Like I always tell people, like when they ask about Donovan, I tell them like Donovan and my dad were like best friends. If I could ask for another dad, it would definitely be Donovan. He's second best, and my dad and Donovan were best friends. And you guys rented that car and drove around and listened to Prince. around.
Yeah, he would take this out. This is great. So and here again, this is when he would come back from being on the road and he would call me at the wrestling school and he would say, "Hey, I'm getting back in tonight. Do you guys want to go out? I'll come pick you up." And so he would rent a limousine and come pick us up, and then we would go out and just, party. We'd go down to San Francisco. I mean, and this would happen quite a bit, and again, it was like, not only are you taking part and sharing in your friends' dreams coming true, but you're really getting to experience things. Like one time, he called me up and he said, "Hey, do you want to go to Las Vegas? I'll pay for everything." And he was just like that kind of guy. It was cool. Cool memories, really cool memories.
And you guys, Donovan, stayed in touch. You and Patty stayed in touch all this time, whereas a lot of us sadly lost touch, in contact with Patty.
Yeah. So Patty, so the one thing I will say, and I think when I remember this vividly, and so does Patty, it's probably one of the reasons that we became so close. But when we were going to the funeral in North Carolina, we went and we flew together over there, and then we flew back together. That's right, isn't it, Patty?
Yeah.
So we flew the same flight, and I carried you, I think, all the way through the airport, pretty much both ways, I think. And it was like, that was kind of like where we bonded. And then from there, you came out to visit us when we moved to Florida. I remember you came one time on Christmas and you jumped in the pool. You were like, you wanted to go in the pool so bad.
Yeah.
You were probably 10 or.
It was ice cold, ice cold.
And then you came out about 4 years later. And then that was about 2014-ish. Yeah. And I think we lost a little bit of touch from there until probably, 5 years went by. And here she is. Now she's all grown up. And I couldn't be more proud of her because she is working. She worked her way into management, and she's working so hard, which is something that a lot of people, me and work. I mean, I love work. And I think that, and Patty was just out here, a couple months ago. She stayed for about a week. But she's working so hard. She's getting her GED. She's beat and defeated so many things that have been in her path. And now she's also helping other people defeat those same things. So I'll leave it at that. But I will say, like, as someone who looks at her as a daughter figure, I'm super proud of her.
Patty, are you still in NorCal, or did you move out of state?
I am. I'm in California still. I live in Santa Clara. Yeah, I got the assistant manager position. I'm working at Little Caesars. Working at Little Caesars for about 3 months now. I like it a lot. So I went to Donovan's house in January or June. No, January. Yeah, it was like January, and that was a lot of fun. We went to see a lot of cool people. We saw Stevie, and that was really cool. Stevie Richards.
Yeah, we all went out to lunch. That was all together. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that was fun. It was awesome seeing. Hadn't seen him since Dad's funeral. It was really cool seeing him. So yeah, no, it was exciting.
Patty, do a lot of people come up and remember your father still after all this time and talk to you about him?
You know what? So we went before he passed away, about a couple months before he passed away, we went to New York with him and me and my mom. We took a little family trip to New York City. And we went to the Hard Rock Cafe, and people were like, "Oh, Crash Holly," and like stopping him everywhere we go. And he's like, "Oh yeah, it happens all the time. Just playing it cool. Oh yeah, don't worry about it. It happens all the time." And people asking for autographs. "Oh, come sit with us. Come sit with us." He's like, "No, I'm gonna sit with my family." And so we ended up going to the Toys R Us afterwards. And he of course he's like, "Oh, we gotta ride the Ferris wheel in the Toys R Us," and he wants to. They have different character themes, and we got to ride the little SpongeBob one because he likes SpongeBob and all that stuff. So yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. We took like the last fun trip like with him before he passed.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell me what your thoughts are of his career in wrestling, and how do you feel about wrestling as a whole since everything that happened?
Well, like, have you ever entertained the thought of doing wrestling yourself?
I don't really watch it. I don't watch it anymore. It's not the same since he passed. But him and Donovan never wanted me to wrestle because they're like, "No, it's too dangerous. You're not allowed to wrestle. It's too dangerous." But I think he was an awesome, amazing wrestler, and when he was wrestling, I think it was great when it was going on. I think it was awesome. Yeah.
I know that your dad was incredibly proud of you when he brought you to the show, and I know that he always was very proud of you, and I think if he was around now, he'd be equally proud of the woman that you've become.
Absolutely. I can second that. I know that for a fact. And, one of the things that's nice is that, Patty, you're coming with us on vacation in June. We're going to the Bahamas for a week, but so now I can like kidnap her and make up for some of this stuff, not seeing her for a couple of years. And so I'm really looking forward to that part, because that part is special to me. When I see her and all the stuff that her dad is proud of her for, it's just fun, because how many of these conversations aren't fun? There's a lot of those out there, right?
Right.
So
no, I'm just so happy like that I'm like doing, doing good now, where like I can be able to come on like fun trips with you guys and be able to get to know Connor more. And it's just awesome. He's like a little brother to me, so it's awesome. I just want to get to know him better, go on more family trips with you guys. I love you guys.
Yeah, we love you too.
Yeah.
Now, are you married now, or do you have any kids?
No,
Okay.
Not married, no kids, just one dog. Little dog.
We're dog friendly on the show. Can you bring him in on the? Oh, he's adorable.
Oh.
What's his name?
Her name is Remy.
Oh, her name is Remy. Very cute.
Yes.
How old is Remy?
She's almost 2.
Oh, okay. Did you
2.
adopt her or get her from a breeder, or?
I got her from a breeder. I just got one little dog, and I don't have as many animals as my dad did. He had the 2 potbelly pigs and dogs and cats, and he had too many animals. But yeah. Crazy.
Do you remember, speaking of pot-bellied pigs, do you remember famous San Francisco boxer, oh God, what was his name now? Irish Pat Lawler. He came to a couple of shows. I dragged him to some APW shows. He was always like a constant presence at my old TV show, but he had several pot-bellied pigs, and he'd bring them to my show when they were small, and then he couldn't bring them anymore because they always go, from tiny, like a Chihuahua, to 300-400 pounds later when people think they're going to stay small. But I remember Donovan was at one of those. I think the This Is Your Life Ray Stevens thing that we filmed, and he was there, and I thought he brought that was like 96. I thought he brought a dog with him there, since it was like right nearby in Alameda. But yeah, I recall him being an animal person, and just beloved. A lot of those, Donovan, I don't know if you remember, because it wasn't very often, and I can't remember if Roland would pick up the tab, but we would go out in the 90s, not after 2000, to like a Christmas holiday thing.
Sure.
It'd be like Kirk White inviting us all out for something, except then he'd go, like when we thought, and it was clear that he was going to be picking up the check, the promoter, instead it was like, oh, separate checks for everybody. But I think Roland did pick up the check a couple of times, and I thought, there's a lot of camaraderie here, and it's one of the first environments where I saw wrestlers bringing their kids at indie shows. You really didn't see that, and I'm sure Roland would have tried to police it and say no, but they were still there, and it was cool seeing that on up to what APW later became. And Marcus Jacobson, who purchased whatever, like the promotional rights, Sparky runs what used to be the APW boot camp as his thing. I forget, Russ, what's his promotion in school called there?
He's got that dungeon thing going. I forgot. Gold Mine. I think it was Gold Mine.
And it's got like sort of a Game of Thrones atmosphere where people come out of doing their entrance through a smoking dragon's mouth. It's very cool. But Marcus Jacobson, Marcus Mack, is finally, after a couple of years since COVID hit, 3 years, like promoted his first card, or it's upcoming. And, so the Bay Area is rocking again, really rocking in terms of indie promotions, which, Mike Lockwood, all of you guys, because Donovan, you were big, Mike Modest and Bison Smith, that triad, but you guys, as initially before Bison became part of that for Noah, global stars. Crash, Mike as a global WWF star, Vic in ECW, etc. And, all the guys, that's like a testament to, I think, I don't know, in the water of Northern California or whatever.
It sure gave a lot of hope, I think, that this could actually be something that can happen in someone's, deal, because good training, and Roland had, from a standpoint of a wrestling product, that he was doing at Gym Wars. I mean, those were some strong shows, And if you came to one of those, you said, this is the real deal. Because if anyone went to, other wrestling companies or shows, or man, they knew the difference right away. APW was.
When was it that you guys opened up the wrestling school together?
So you talking about Pro Wrestling Iron?
Yeah.
That we opened that in 2002.
Yeah.
So
we knew after the
King of the Indies.
Yeah, the 2-day King of the Indies in Vallejo that everybody was going to be leaving. That was like all of the talk, particularly night 2. Donovan, you had the match. Wasn't your match with Bison on night 2?
Yeah, I had a match with Brian Danielson one night, and then Mark.
Bison was so cool.
Yeah, it was cool, right? Oh yeah, that's what I remember. Not to get off topic, but when I got married to my wife Joanne, we rented a house, and you stayed with us, and your mom stayed with us, and then Bison stayed with us.
Yeah, he was gonna leave. Bison was gonna leave like the next day, and I was like, no, you gotta stay. You gotta stay. And then my mom was actually telling me a story the other day. She's all like, they stayed up till like 2 o'clock in the morning, and like they were drunker than anything, and they stayed until like 2 o'clock in the morning. They had to drive somebody to the airport, and Bison was like, come on, you want to come with me? And she's like, all right, let's go. And they were like, it was so funny, and he ended up staying like an extra couple days.
All I remember about my wedding day was that on my wedding day, and I was just telling my business partner got married last week, and so I was telling them, I said, on my wedding day, Mark or Bison and I were in the pool at 6 a.m, and I had a coffee cup, and he would come and fill my coffee cup with Seagram's 7. And it was so funny because that's like, I totally remember that part. So fun days way back, but yeah, that was a good time for sure. Good memories. But yeah, to get back to the King of the Indies, that's what happened. I wrestled Mark in one of those matches.
Patty, do you remember when your father got he got accepted into the WWE? Was that something that you remember, or were you too young?
Honestly, I think I was too young to remember like when he officially got accepted into the WWE. What I remember is I just remember like I hear a lot of stories about him, and I remember watching him on TV. I mean, it was so long ago, but I just remember watching him a lot on TV and stuff like that. But
you would have been 3 going on 4. That's how old she would have been. So.
Yeah. So I was pretty young to remember.
Patty, did he ever take you into any WWE locker rooms, or like when they were in town at San Francisco or Oakland?
So when he would wrestle, so I stayed in touch with Molly Holly, and I still talk to her sometimes. So when he would wrestle, he would let me stay in the girls' locker room with the girl wrestlers. So that was pretty cool. And Molly Holly was telling me that actually the guys seem like pretty brutal when they're wrestling, but the girls are way worse. She would tell me, pulling hair, and like they're way more brutal when they're wrestling and stuff like that. It's funny. I actually still have his in my attic at my mom's house. I have his WWE belt that he won.
Oh, the hardcore title?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Wow. He should be in the Hall of Fame, but Molly Holly, before I forget, Nora Greenwald's her real name. She's the heart and soul of wrestling. She does a lot of both religious and schooling and helping kids. I mean, she's always giving. She's on boards of charities and stuff. She's really one of those nice people that aren't a rarity, but you don't hear enough about good people like Molly Holly, Nora Greenwald. And luckily she's in their Hall of Fame. I think it's time for your father to be in their Hall of Fame as well.
How come he's not?
A lot of it is, I wouldn't say politicking. Maybe Donovan knows, but it's, sometimes, things are all different now that Vince McMahon is gone from the WWE.
And that's a good way to lead into, that, because anything's possible, but yeah. Mike.
They're allowed to use the word wrestling. They can call referees instead of officials. They don't have to call a hospital a medical facility. All these idiotic things have been pushed out, and there's really under Hunter, his son-in-law, semi-retired Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Paul Levesque. They are making amends and doing things. They brought in a female wrestler that was long gone, and they allowed her to use her name, Mickey James, as her real work name, and also call her the Impact Wrestling World Champion, a smaller company, but a rival nonetheless. So it's very refreshing, and Hunter has gone way beyond that. So I think opportunities will be there in a couple of years. I mean, I don't think China's been put in yet, but that's, they're very open to doing that now, where it would never been happen.
Yeah, if that happens, then there's a chance. I would say a pretty good chance. If they inducted China, then I think that they would induct him. That's what I would think.
You had Vince McMahon Sr.'s chauffeur driver in the Hall of Fame, which is ludicrous. Under Vince's tenure, he was like in the first class with Andre and Bobo Brazil and total actual.
Even though it was like the Holly cousins, so one gets to be in there, but the other one doesn't.
I don't know.
No. Well, they could be individually, and they could also be like Ric Flair individually, but he was also with the Horsemen. So no reason why the Holly crew couldn't go in as a unit, and then each of them separately. Molly right now, because Bob's not in the Hall of Fame to my knowledge. It's just Molly,
Would that mean a lot to you if your dad was inducted in the WWE Hall of Fame right now?
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
We'd like to see it. All of us would like to see it. So hopefully it is something that can happen. Now, and if this is something you don't want to talk about, you can just move on. But do you have reflections on what happened to your father? And do you feel that there was some level of unfairness as to the way the WWE treated him in the end that may have unfortunately led to the emotional levels of his passing?
I think that he was going through. I don't exactly know what happened, why he left the WWE, but I think that from my knowledge that he was going through like a hard time, and he was going through a divorce at the same time with her, and I think all together. I think he was on his way back, and as Donovan was telling me when I was in Florida, he was actually booked to go to Japan, Tokyo with you, and he had passed right before when everything was booked and everything. But so I think that I think he was booked and everything, but I don't know. I think it was a rough.
Her and I have had conversations in private about certain things that just kind of wondering, but it really hasn't gotten, even in our private conversations, it's really never breached what she just said. I mean, there was something going on, and what happened. And other than that, it's just to try and peel back the onion anymore. I think that onion's been peeled so many times where, it's a situation that was horrible, sad. I felt horrible also for Stevie as well, because I know, it was just traumatic, on everyone that was there. And but
were they roadmates? Because I don't know if Stevie ever came into APW, like Colt Cabana and others that he might have known. So were they close? Like, for example, in WWF, the best roadmates were Owen Hart and Louis Spicoli, who Mike Lockwood knew.
We're close, right, Patty? I mean, very. Yeah.
Stevie and my dad were very close. I think that so he had gotten the call. I guess from his. He was saying to me he had gotten the call from his realtor that something that they were trying to get in to look at the place when Stevie was selling the house, and I guess the next day he had passed. I guess Stevie had talked to him 2 days before he had passed, and nothing. He didn't think too much of it. He sounded okay, and then I guess they were trying to get in, and they found him. I guess the realtor found him, whatever. That Stevie never even knew. So it was, I guess, pretty tough on Stevie too.
Well, I appreciate you being honest about that. I know it's very hard. He was the first wrestling related death that I had ever been touched by, and I just need to tell you that the reverberations of his passing hit us all to the core of us. To see someone in person, know them, and have them become your friend, and then so quickly be gone after he had achieved such great heights, shocked all of us to the very core of who we were. And that was the first one. I'm sad to say I've seen so many other guys die, but your father's situation was unique to all of us, and it taught us both an amazing lesson about how ephemeral all this stuff was and how quick fame could be there for you, but then be taken away, and then life could be taken away so quickly. And it still touches me today to think about what a wonderful person your father was to all of us, and the lesson that he unfortunately taught all of us about how mercurial life is. Is that something you reflect on as well, or you try to get past that and live your own life moving forward?
In a way, like for a long time I've thought about it, and then like you can never like just, forget about it or just, move on from it. It's always like going to be with you. Like you think like, God, if somebody would have been there with him that morning or that night, or somebody would have been there with him, would have things been different? Or, he wasn't by himself. It's like, you think about all those things like, oh, he didn't, this or that. I don't know.
We all wish we could have done something to help, and we didn't know. None of us knew. We didn't know what was going on, and that's always the scariest thing about a situation like that, is that there's so much that goes on in the background, and we just see the surface, and we never really knew what was going. Except for Donovan, probably knew greater than we did, but to all of us, it's still, I think back emotionally on that moment, which was so many years ago today. And it still just stunned me when I heard the news. And looking back on it, it's still an amazing situation in my life. But I do feel very privileged for having met him and having heard his stories and found out about what mattered to him. And I knew even then you mattered so much to him, and your connection to him mattered so much to him. So don't want to get too emotional. I'm going to start to cry if I think too much more about what happened. But it touched me tremendously.
So Donovan, I didn't even know. So speaking of doing things for him, you were going to try to get him booked into NOAH? Was that what?
He was already booked.
Already booked in NOAH?
Yep. So he was going to do his first tour, and it was literally a couple days from the day that he passed. So it just.
Remember how he was he going to go back to or use a different persona? He may not have been able to, unless he went as the artist formerly known as Crash Holly.
I can't remember, but I think he was going as Mad Mikey.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I could be wrong. That's what I think.
And I think he used at the one tryout match he had with ECW, the Mad Mikey gimmick, if I'm not mistaken.
I think it was.
Well, he had several, so that's why it's.
Yeah. I think it was Mad Mikey.
Was it?
I think so. I think that's what you told me before. I'm not sure. He had so many different names. You think he's the only wrestler that had all these different names?
No, but he did it very well. Some don't, and then others, he might have been in the Mick Foley category. He had gimmicks and did all of them exceptionally well.
Patty, did your father ever share with you what his ultimate goal was, or what his ultimate dream in wrestling would have been?
He just liked to make people happy. See people laugh. He was the life of the party.
He liked being part of the show, part of the deal.
Yeah.
He was. In that sense, know that he accomplished that with everyone that I knew that ever met him. People always felt that. No one ever said anything negative about your father and his performances, either on the indie level or on the pro level. And everyone knew that he gave 100% when he was in the ring, 110%.
Yeah.
He was solid. He was solid. He was not you would rarely see him flub something up. I mean, he was just an athlete, and that's what
Donovan, you may know, what kind of an athlete was he before, prior to wrestling? Did he do track? Did he, what kinds of things, if you recall, or do you know?
All when he was in high school, he started wrestling like when he was in high school.
Right.
And yeah, I think starting from in high school, he started doing wrestling.
Amateur, right, at the high school.
Yep. Yeah.
Did he play football?
I think he did.
I think he did too, but I'm trying to grasp at what he did.
Do you know if he was ever interested in doing acting, maybe, as something after wrestling at all? Because he was so good at his characters.
I'm not too sure if he was ever interested in doing acting. I think he loved what he was doing. He loved wrestling, and I think that's what he was passionate about. So just making people, pleasing the crowd, making people laugh, being the star of the show.
You don't really think about it. If you're in the mix of everything, you're not really looking outside, looking in and going, wow, my dad is this guy, because you're so young, number one. But number two, one of the things that I always remember was Val Venus did a shoot interview, and he was talking about Crash, and he was saying that Crash he goes, if you put Goldberg's pop up against Crash's pop when they came through the curtain, Crash would win. The people would pop so huge for Crash Holly, and it was like, that's one thing that kind of made me see, oh wow, that we forget that because we were friends with them, right? So sometimes you're in the tunnel and everything's going so fast, but when I hear something like that, I'm like, wow, yeah, that's pretty cool.
Do you watch any of his old videos of any of his matches, or go back and watch any of his works?
I have a lot of VHS tapes. I watch those sometimes, but who really has a VHS player anymore?
Hey, you need to, now that we're talking about that, you need to bring all those when you come with you, and we'll get them put on DVD. My website guy will just put them all on DVD for you.
Okay.
I mean, maybe Mike, if you've got some pictures that you can send Patty from.
I've got like zillions of shots at Roland Alexander's service, where again had to speak. I had a couple of big giant poster boards, and Donovan, you'd already moved and stuff, and Mike Modest wasn't there, but big giant poster boards, and I had like one of them just had nothing but Mike Lockwood photos, all over and right in the center was him with, I had some of his matches. I was able at small house shows. They'd let us from PWI magazine shoot ringside at WWE house shows when there weren't cameras present. So I had some of those, but right in the center though was the shot I posed to him with Jim Barnett and Meltzer in the shot. I thought that was kind of an important photo. But there was tons of all of you guys. When you think of all of those guys in there, Boom Boom Kamini, all of his brothers, and I think I even have him in one of the early matches I shot him, whatever the heck year it was, 96, 97 with Super Diablo, and I think I have him against Matt Hyson. Donovan, do you remember some of his various matches? I mean, he will probably have to work with everybody, Tony Jones on up to Kwame Kamosi and Jay Smooth and all of them.
I mean, I just think it's so cool. Like, not a lot of people can say like, oh, my dad, my dad's Crash Holly, or my dad's a wrestler. Like, some people, their parent passes away and they have no way of watching any videos or hearing their voice or just anything like that. I think it's like the coolest thing. I'm like, if I ever just missing him real bad, I just turn a video on, or like so many photos or videos. It's so cool.
Great point. That's a great point. Yeah.
They might purchase, if you guys work together on transferring the VHS to DVD, WWE has him in X amount of stuff. There's quite a bit of him on their streaming network, WWE. Well, it's part of Peacock, NBC's Peacock now.
Well, Stevie tried to get him he actually went and tried to get WWE to get you everything on to DVD. but it was like the guy that he talked to was, remember when we went to eat, he said he was going to do that.
Yeah.
He talked to the guy and the guy was like, oh, now there's so many like regulations. I have to, it's just easier to go to YouTube and do it.
Red tape.
Oh, you mean you would upload the stuff to you?
Yeah.
You'd be able to, I mean, she could utilize the income. You might be able to monetize streaming where people could pay something reasonable to access this content. Early Mike Lockwood or pre-WWE Mike Lockwood, and I think X amount of people would around the world, particularly Japan, where they're really into history, or Toronto folks in various parts of Canada, they're really super historic buffs. They probably stream.
They don't forget what happened, 20, 30 years ago, which is nice because everyone here in America forgets what happened yesterday.
It's like baseball fans, they're way into history, which is cool. I think probably X amount of NFL people, into history, and, Y.A. Tittle for the Niners, etc. Russ is a big Niners history buff.
Somebody happens to be a Giants fan. I don't know who. Somebody happens to be.
All Giants fans. I had to move, Donovan. You don't know. I had to move after 40 years in the Bay Area back down to Southern Cal to take care of my wife's folks. But I'm still a Niners, Giants, A's, Warriors fan. I shot all their victory parades, and it kills me. The Raiders are in Vegas. With all the history they had bopping between it, Oakland and LA. But the wrestling fans are that way too. They're amongst, I would think, there are way more wrestling historical sites than there are for, other sports or, traditionally so-called more legit sports. I mean, there are these historian folks are celebrated in wrestling. So, anyway, he should be celebrated, I think.
We're talking about a really special time in wrestling too, which was Attitude Era. And what I'm interested in seeing is, 20 years from now, who's talking about where we're at now? Because I don't think there's going to be anybody. I mean, there's some cool stuff, but it's not special like that was. That was a special time.
He was part of that whole.
What would it take to get him into the Hall of Fame? Since he's already passed, then what would it take for to get him in there?
Just to lobby. There've been a lot of people. I know some of the people. I know like the head archivist who also makes suggestions for names, but probably the family and getting friends. I mean, a lot of fans have been holding up signs for years. China in the Hall of Fame, Victoria in the Hall of Fame. And again, now, however many months it's been, 3-4 months since Vince left, they are more open to that. So that's something that can be pursued, as well as, I don't know if you're getting probably no remuneration for, probably like all of them had to sign away their rights, but the streaming stuff, some people have tried to say that they should deserve some income from that, So it just depends on whatever he might have signed. You don't think about that as talent.
Does the WWE ever reach out to you, Patty, and try to, talk to you about your father or anything like that?
Or even invite her to shows. That's usually the first step. Invite her to shows, have her come backstage, talk to some of the management or the agents.
Yeah, no, they don't. I haven't had anybody reach out to me, no.
I'm sorry about that too, because your father desered more respect than that.
Oh, and it doesn't mean it's not going to happen either.
We can work on that.
It can happen. It's just a matter of timing, and Mike kind of hit it right on the head. It's all political, so you've got to get the message to the right person that can take it up the political chain and get it, make it happen.
Patty, what is something about your father that we don't know about him that we should know, according in your view?
I mean, I don't know. Like you guys know a whole lot about him. Like,
Well, you said he was a great dad. He was full of fun.
Yeah, I mean, he was an amazing guy. Like, he would come. We had this, like, one thing about him, we had this stuffed animal, a lion stuffed animal, and he would come here. I got it from the San Francisco Zoo when I was like maybe 2 or 3. And he would travel where he was traveling to, and he'd bring it with him in his suitcase. I'm sure Don remembers this. Bring it with him in his suitcase, and Lion would go with him. And then when he was coming back, Lion would go back in his suitcase, come with me, and then we just traded back off and forth. I still have it to this day. So he was just
a good story.
one of those guys you just never forget.
Absolutely. And again, as I said it before, but when I talked to him, he would talk about you and say how proud he was. And I know that if he were to see you today, he'd be incredibly proud of the person that you've become. And I know that's hard to miss somebody that much, because I lost my own mom due to a blood disease a number of years ago, and it's hard to think back on the time that you missed with somebody and think about how there's so much time in between that they didn't get to see you and didn't get to know you. But I think you've been very courageous about all of this, and do you look at yourself and say that courage came from what your father instilled within you, or is that something that you feel that you've developed over the years for yourself?
I would say a little bit of both. I'd say I got like a lot of courage from him, and he just taught me never to give up and just keep going. I mean, I've been going back, got the assistant manager position. I've been going back to school, trying to get my GED, and I've just been doing pretty good. So I mean, I don't know. Yeah.
Good for you.
The one thing I want to say, sorry, Patty, I'll let you pick up here in a sec. The one thing I wanted to say is that I was telling Patty's mom the other day on the phone, and I said, there's no difference from Patty at 8 years old to Patty at 26. She has the same heart. She talks the same way. She reacts the same way. She's the same girl. And you don't get that a lot, sometimes people change so much, and with her, I was just so glad she was able to keep the little girl. She's still the little girl that I remember. She is not any different, other than being a different age. So that's kind of a cool thing.
So Patty, where do you see yourself 10 years from now, if I can ask you that question? What are your goals in the next 10 years, and how do you see yourself?
Just hopefully, I mean, maybe, okay, in 10 years, hopefully with a house, more animals.
So you've won the lottery 4 times, because if you're in Santa Clara, you're going to have to probably win the lottery several times.
I bought the Powerball this morning. I bought the Powerball this morning, and it was going for $1.6 billion.
So she said,
I get you the down payment for a house in Santa Clara.
I'm going to send Donovan $2 million. I win. Yeah, but no, I don't know. It was a funny story. Like when I went to Donovan's house, I get there on the first night, and he goes, "Oh, are you hungry?" And I go, "Yeah, sure." So I go, go get ready, whatever. And he brings me up. But here, I brought you up your favorite, a couple of hot dogs. Well, that's because when we were on the way to Dad's funeral. Dad's funeral, we're taking the funeral, and we're eating, must have ate hot dogs the morning of the funeral, going on the plane. And it was funny because we're just tooting away the whole way. And so I get there.
I would like to say you were the one that was doing that.
Oh, okay. I was the one.
The 8-year-old, yeah. And we're like, her mom and I are like, what in the hell? What is that? What is that? And it was her. And so I brought her favorite.
Yeah, like 16 years something like later, 20 years later, I'm like, he brings me, "Oh, brought you your favorite, couple of hot dogs." I'm like, oh my
And you
God.
knew exactly what I was talking about. I didn't even need to say anything.
Yep, here, brought you your favorite. I'm like, thanks. Yep. Too funny.
And before we let you go, do you have some websites, or is there or social media, or is there a tribute site for your dad? And if not, we'll just get you lots of photos for it.
You know what? I don't actually. I don't. We could put it on, Facebook or whatever. It's fine. Or we can make one if you guys want to do that. That's fine.
Do you have a social media site that our fans could talk to you if they have any memories or would like to chat with you about your father?
Yeah, I have Facebook. Yeah.
Well, that's great. I should definitely become friends with you on Facebook as well, and that's where we have our site. And Donovan, would you like to have any last words to say to Patty on the show before we wrap up?
No, I thought this was really cool. You know, it was an hour of just remembering her father and, you know, all the things he accomplished, and also, you know, giving Patty some props for how far she's come and what a cool woman she's becoming. So that's pretty much it. I thought it was a great use of an hour, that's for sure.
Yeah.
I'm very touched, and I'm very thankful to both you and Patty for coming on the show. Thank you so much, Donovan, for making this interview possible. I know Patty wouldn't have just come on straight without you being here. So you made this happen, and I learned a whole lot, and to say thank you to your father indirectly, to saying it to you. I never had the chance to say goodbye to him. So, you know, I can kind of close that chapter in my own life by congratulating you and saying what a wonderful person you've turned out to be.
Good. We love your dad, and obviously we love you. You're part of our community, our family.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, add me on Facebook. I have a ton of photos I can add to it or whatever. I have so many photos. And if you guys have any photos, if you want to send me some, I'd love that. That'd be awesome.
That's Mike's department.
Yeah, I'll bug Donovan later on in the week for your email so we can send them. I can send them to both you guys at the same time. So okay. I'm sure you're going to crack up at a lot of this stuff, and I mean, gosh, I must have him against everybody. So in those glory 90s days and beyond of his career in wrestling, and I can't remember if we might have had like one A's game where some of the talents went out. I can't recall, but whatever I've got, I'll make it available to you guys. And cool. Donovan, thank you so much as being probably his closest brother out here, really.
Well, no problem. And thanks for setting it all up, guys. Appreciate you.
This has been a very special episode, and I really have treasured all of it. Thank you so much. We'll see everybody next week again. Thank you so much for being there, and happy holidays. And you know, your father will be in our thoughts today.
Thank you.
Definitely today.
And will today be on like on YouTube, Donovan?
Yes, I will edit it, have it uploaded, and I will send you the link. So I'll post it on Facebook.com/wrestling and everything coast to coast. But I will also send you a friend request so I can give you that link directly.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thanks everyone for coming. We'll see you all next week. Good night, everyone.
Come on.
Good night.